Hi, everybody. I'm Nora Yolles Young, and welcome to The Experience. And today we have one of my favorite guests, ours, we, us, all of us, Courtney Starkey. Hi,
Hi.
Courtney. If any of you have been watching the show and following Courtney, you know that she's an extraordinary hypnotherapist and has had basically every training you can have regarding spiritual hypnotherapy. So she is adept, let me tell you. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what the heck is going on energetically in the world. And Courtney's going to chime in on that. And then we're going to just roll with it because since we're both hypnotherapists and we see clients going through what they're going through, what you're all going through, we're just going to riff off that and get rolling. So I want you to just say hello, Courtney.
Hi, everybody. This is so much fun. I love it whenever I'm being interviewed by someone that I already know, and I just go into it with the energy of this is going to be such an awesome conversation. And I know we both trust the universe, so we'll just talk about whatever we're meant to talk about.
Perfect. Awesome. Here, pan your camera down just a little bit so we can see more than your adorable face. There you go. There she is. Okay, good.
Neckline.
Yes, and she's got a lovely neck. So you all who are watching, well, and what is today? It's the 27th of June. And
July.
what was that?
July.
June.
I know, there is no time. It's happening to me too. I'm like, what month is this?
So it's the 20th, and it's 2 days from my daughter's birthday, so it's on my mind, but of course I'm not nailing that. It's totally, anyway, so Mars retrograde and Mercury retrograde are happening right now, and I'm not an astrologer, but I do have astrologer friends, and they are emphatic and have been for months leading up to this, that this summer is going to be mind-blowing on every level of humanity. And so you all may be feeling it. You know, one of the just simple ways that I'm noticing it in my life is I just need to drink so much more water. It's like I can't seem to get enough fluids, and I know that that's a super important step. What are you noticing? We'll just sort of take it from there.
Oh my gosh. So I'll do the last, I love it, on cue, the water. I have my own as well.
Drink your water, everybody.
Right? So I'll do talk about what I've been noticing for the last couple of months, and then I'll go ahead and shift into the last couple of days because it's very different in my experience. So for the last couple of months, both with myself and my clients. And of course, my clients don't know each other. So it's always interesting when they raise these issues that highlight obvious patterns. And
I love that. Yes.
Feeling like a lower energy. And I don't mean anything sad or negative. I mean more like mellow and calm.
Mm-hmm.
That's been really, really obvious. And it's been a little bit frustrating to many of us because we're used to being these hummingbirds. They're like, "Ooh, like what to do now? What to do now?" And you know, we're very high achieving, high energy. The universe is always giving us these new projects and tasks, and it's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then suddenly there is this like, maybe I'll just sit on the couch and just chill and receive the energy, which is great. But when you have this big to-do list that the universe has given you, and then suddenly your energy doesn't match the to-do list, it can become a little bit frustrating, especially when it's going on for days, weeks.
We don't know how to deal with that. I call that the meh energy.
Exactly. And so because the clients have been experiencing this as well, and in the sessions, they are connecting with their higher wisdom, their souls, their spirit guides, the universe, and all of that wisdom, we've been asking, like, what is going on? And the universe, of course, always is super chill. We're like, you're just meant to receive right now. You don't have to worry about it. And we're all like, why'd you give us this to-do list? and then it's just like super chill. To-do list. I'll look at you tomorrow. But then the next day, the next week, the next month, it's just like, oh no, this to-do list is not shrinking. And
let me pause you there. And we're still looking at this from months out, right? We're still looking at this energy from months out, or are we integrating more into the current time frame? Because I have
Just
a
one
question.
month. I would say, sure. Because I'm right there with you. My birthday was in June, and I will do the exact same thing. So July is obviously very important to you because of your daughter. For me, June is going to be important to me. And I will look at something, an event, for example, and then I'll think like, oh, well, that already happened. But it doesn't make any sense because it's happening in August, but I think it's November. Just weird stuff like that. So I
Yes.
think lower energy has been around the mellow energy has been around for a couple of months, but I'm a little bit off.
And we just did that. We just did that when I was saying it's June and it's actually July. So
Right.
maybe we should just jump right into the timeline thing, because that's definitely something that I'm seeing with clients. I had a client just last week where this specific question was being asked, and guidance came through that was like, timelines are blending. Timelines are blending, and so people are having the experience of deja vu and anomalies in the matrix, just like, wait, did that just happen? And there's that timeline issue where you're like, where am I in time? Am I even, like, what lifetime am I even in? Like, blending of lifetimes too, integrations. Yeah. Okay, take the stage.
I know. And so because everything is happening now, right? So we can tap into anything. There is part of us that is experiencing November and then the glitchiness. But I think even though it sounds weird, right? And so it sounds weird and it sounds a little bit disconcerting, but it's actually really beautiful. I think that they are just easing us into the reality of everything is happening now, the reality of we are all connected, the reality of our own wisdom, our own strength and power. Like, they're really just kind of like, let me trip you up a little bit and have you say the wrong month enough times that you start to wonder. And then we start to expand our minds, our hearts, and they ease us rather than just going like, hey, it's all happening right now. Boom.
Yeah. Deal with overwhelm. Okay, go.
Right. Which I think that they trust us enough that they're like, we'll ease you in, but then we're going to go from kiddie pool into like the middle of the pool really quickly because you can handle it. Yeah. Like, your feet are already wet. Just get right up to the neck. You can do it.
You have tools, use them. And so that sort of brings us back to what you were just talking about when what were we just talking about?
Oh, we were talking about astronomy, astrology with the retrogrades, the eclipse that's happening today, and the energy of the last couple of months versus this week.
Right. And I want to get back to that too. And I had a very specific thought. And of course, that's it. The to-do list. So when we have a to-do list, but then we have this tendency from this new energy coming in that's softening our perceptions to such a degree that we can't even utilize our wisdom in the way that we're familiar with on that, like, breakneck pace. And so you have to soften and then allow. And then it's like, how do we feather that in? Like, what are we doing here? And I think that is honestly, my opinion anyway, everyone, that is why we came here. That is part of the dance of this time.
That's really beautiful. You're giving me so many goosebumps. I'm glad I turned on the air conditioning. My body would just be like, too cold, too cold. But yeah, that beautiful blending of, for me, and I'll see what you think about this, because we are very go, go, go. But what really moves that forward is also going into the ease and flow. Having that balance. And you can go, go, go in a real push, push, push way, or you can go, go, go in an ease and flow way. And I think they're just like, we're going to take you into this energy where you get to experience that you didn't think anything was happening with the to-do list until boom, it goes so quickly. And that's what's happening for me right now, where I'm like, I really want to update my website. Really want to do it. It's been on the to-do list for a while. And I guarantee, because I just texted my husband, yesterday was the first day that I felt any inspiration to actually look at the website and start to play with how to shift things around. And so I texted him today and said, hey, what do you think about working on it so that it wraps up by August 1st? Because we're going to Alaska on August 2nd. He was like, no problem.
He's going to do it? How awesome is that?
He is such a a beautiful, quiet partner in helping people with all of this advancement, because my website is so user-friendly because of him. And so I have the vision. He has the ability to make it happen. So many people compliment the website, and they're like, when I saw the website, I knew you were the one to work with. And I'm just like, so I funnel that, those compliments back to him. And these people are having sessions with me because of the beauty that he has created. So he is quietly helping souls.
I need a Charles. I need that. I need to have that in my life, because it's like you're the artist. You need someone to go, this is how you're structured, and then the people just come in so that you can help. We're doing the service. We're like, okay, we got to help you, and people are like, how do I find you? I'm going through this.
So you've just made the wish. You let me know when your child goes up, because he or she is coming.
Oh my gosh. It's been crazy. Clients, it's been a crazy time for amazing awakening for people. And we've talked about this in other sessions. But I'm curious to know if you're experiencing what I'm experiencing in sessions. I'm noticing that people are really concretizing and having a difficult time opening their consciousness, or just doing profound change in, like, so when I work with clients on a clinical level, maybe we're working on marriage or relationships or stress, anxiety, fears, all of those things. People can go through pretty quickly, but on average 3 to 4 sessions. And so there have been people coming that are doing about 5 sessions in one, where they're just like, yep. They're just clicking stuff off or checking stuff off the list, and they're moving. And then there are people who are like, yeah, no, I'm not going to open. I'm not even going to go. Right. And it's interesting. And that's a beautiful thing too. 'Cause, people have their own pace. So whoever's watching this, like, even if you feel like you want to expand your consciousness and have the benefits of hypnotherapy, like Courtney or I offer, just allow yourself to be at whatever speed you're at. And you can, and sometimes the work is so profound that just those baby steps are going to be, your first initiation. But you never know, like right after that baby step, you could have like a rocket thruster on your tush.
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting how the universe will kind of like heal you and advance you behind your back.
I love that.
A session that seems a little ho-hum compared to other sessions, but then the person 3 days later, 3 weeks later, something major starts to shift. And sometimes they associate it with the session. Sometimes it seems unrelated because enough time has passed that they're not connecting the two. And then eventually they do connect it. And that's when I eventually get the email and they're like, I think something happened. I'm like, yeah, it usually does.
You think?
Right. Yeah, no, it's been really interesting with my clients, where I would say that at this stage, it's about 98% just like boom, 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 really moving forward. But then there's that 2% where I can absolutely identify with what you're talking about. And there have been a few things that have come to light recently that help me to understand that better. Like what's going on with the 2%, right? Because they are also really just these amazing souls, really advanced. I don't want to do any like hierarchical, but you can tell like there's a lot of juice. There's a lot of juice in there, but there is something that is a bit of a block that objectively they've gone through a really tough situation and it's started to close them off a little bit. And so a lot of times we can work through whatever the resistance is. And I love how open they are. Like they don't get defensive whenever they're being a bit resistant. They're like, there's part of me that's being a bit resistant. I'm like, I think you're right.
That's awesome. I have clients that are very resistant to their resistance, but it's not intentional. It's not
a double.
They're trying hard, and I think maybe generationally there might be something there too. Like maybe people who are of a particular generation, trauma can be a huge, I'm noticing so much hypervigilance going on around, trauma and then this expectation that they need to have eyes around their head, and that they have to be able to anticipate every experience. And it's like, I think that's part of that shift in energy, where it's like learning how to trust that information to come through.
Yeah.
And that is a skill. It's a muscle, you know?
You are saying exactly what I've been learning. So for example, this one client, she is almost 70 and has had a bit of a rough go since she was 2. And it's interesting. It's a really nice way where she's been taking care of people since she was 2, which sounds like an exaggeration, except for she had an elderly family member move in, and with loving care, the elderly family member would say like, oh, would you mind, grabbing this for me or taking care of that? And as a sweet little 2-year-old, so really
want to be a little helper. Yeah.
Like, of course. She's almost 70. She's over it.
Yeah.
Right? It keeps happening. And I asked her, I was like, have you practiced saying no? And she's like, no, I get slapped down. No. The spirit friends even harder when I do. This is my path, but I'm really over it. And so she's built up a real annoyance with her team. And so it's closed off over time because this takes a lot out of her. And so when we're having the session, this is falling into the 2% where like you can feel that like there's a lot of good stuff happening there, but then a block because she's ticked.
Yeah.
Understandably, she's ticked at them.
Yeah.
And so you were saying the word trust, and it's a muscle. Absolutely. And they said the exact same thing to her. They were like, you need to start smaller with your trust. So for example, if you've got a pickle jar, for example, and it's really tight, the lid, and you know that it's not opening, make a wish, ask for our help, try to open it again. It's going to open. There are no emotions involved in that. It's so simple and easy. It's very direct. And then suddenly you start to slowly trust us again in a way that expands and expands. What great homework.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I love the pickle jar. That's a great exercise. And I think too, people are, people who are very concrete thinkers still in that zone of like, kind of the older energies were, you could really muscle your way through life with effort.
Yes.
And people who are successful in that context are like, what the hell am I supposed to do right now? Like, how I've always succeeded this way. So how is it now that my success is contingent on me chilling out, not muscling through and trusting what? Like, I don't have empirical evidence that this is the case. This is not on CNN telling me that I should do this. This is not on Fox News telling me that I should do this. This isn't coming from the advice of my peers. This is tinfoil hat wearing woo-woo stuff. And my response to that is, sure, if that is the way that you need to feel, that's totally perfectly okay. But I think that there's a new empiricism that we can start to notice. And that is noticing what you notice and starting to build your database, your own personal sovereign database of what you see to be true. And that's when you can start like building the trust, like that trust of like this ephemeral, ethereal, like what am I trusting? Like there was a friend of mine who once, like, I'm like, you're going to do amazing. Are you ready? Are you ready? Like things are taking off for you. She's like getting more and more popular in her realm. And she's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, get ready, like hold my tush. Like, what am I doing? It's like, it's just a trust. It's just a let it go. Like, let's, woohoo.
I love it. Yeah, it's essentially a trust fall. Like, yeah, hey universe, let's do this. And it can be scary, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it.
Well, and also these people who are not familiar with this level of trust also like I see people having a difficult time with the word surrender. And that's truly what this is. Yeah. And surrender has a negative connotation for a lot of people. And so what do you think of the concept of surrender? And like, how, like, say a client is coming in and trying to figure out this whole trust fall piece. What would you say?
Well, I'm really lucky in the last 5 years when I started as a hypnosis client, which I still have sessions. I love it so much because I'm always evolving and advancing. And so the sessions always bring in new information for me. But yeah, back in the day when I was new to all of this, I had high levels of needing to control. But there was part of me that understood that if I let go of control, then my sessions would be far more fruitful. And so the way that I managed that and balanced all of it was that it was my decision to relinquish control.
Okay, great.
Over the decision to not be in control. I had control over the decision to surrender and just let things happen as they were meant to. And my sessions really just took off because
that's amazing. And I want to drill down a little bit more into what you physically notice about, or like in terms of what it is that you do to surrender. Like, is that, like, some people may not even know how to do that. Like, what if I've been on hypervigilance mode my whole life and I'm like this? What does surrender look like? Show me how.
Sure, yeah, of course. You ask really good questions, by the way. So for me, and I'd love to also circle back to what we've been experiencing in our sessions, but one of the shifts for me is that I used to feel like part of my role, responsibility to the client were these really like long, very peaceful inductions. And a few months ago, I got my master hypnotherapist certification, and something that I read in the book immediately complemented what I was noticing in the sessions, which is that a lot of people don't really need that, and that they're just patiently waiting for you to wrap up because the session already started for them, but they're very polite. They don't say anything.
Totally.
And the same thing happens to me as a client too, where I was just like, oh, of course, so
like, come on, I'm there already. I'm just waiting for you to catch up. Like in training at LBL training for our life between, I was like, I'm here. Let's go.
Okay, so exact same thing. What's funny is that I hope that you remember what I was originally answering, because I'm so like moving into that right now. What was I originally answering?
How do you explain to a person about trust?
Okay,
like,
thank you.
Like that letting go sensation in their being. How do you do that to somebody who doesn't know how?
Here's the segue that happened silently in my head that I went off on. So the inductions have been much shorter as of late. And the reason for that is that there is this skill, technique, method that one can use anytime that we've been using in the sessions. And so that's what I'll talk about now. And it sounds so simple, which is great because it's easy to try, but almost so simple that one might be like, really?
How could it be that simple?
More than that?
Right.
Yeah. So I just say like homework assignment, just try it. But for me and the clients, and what is getting them in so quickly and so easily is really just following the breath. And then and it's all about enjoyment, right? So if you are having a good time, trust immediately starts to open up more and more because it's pleasurable and you're like, yeah, I'll do more of that. And so when they're laying there, I always start with, the first thing I say is enjoying the feeling of having your eyes closed, right? So we're starting with peace and relaxation and enjoyment right off the bat, and then starting to focus on the breathing and those nice deep breaths, and then receiving the nourishing oxygen. So you're practicing receiving in that moment, and then moving into really enjoying receiving the joy, the peace, the loving energy that's surrounding them, right? And so
I can enjoy. I think that's a really good point. Joy for trust.
Yes.
So you're equating joy and trust right now. Okay. God, that's awesome. I love it.
And I'm sure your office has equally wonderful energy, right?
Yeah.
Because you're there all the time. These amazing things are happening. Like, it's
Well,
good energy.
we're all there all the time.
Right, right, exactly. And so it's this moment where they're like, yeah, and even if it's because they think it's in my office, which of course the joyful energy is always around them, but they start to open up to, yeah, breathing feels good. Oxygen is awesome. Like
Yeah.
we should
Yeah.
take deeper breaths. We
What
need
a
more.
concept. What?
Yeah, kind of
and
like
the
you with
cells.
water. Like water and oxygen, they do the body right.
Do you agree with the idea that consciousness is held within all of our cells?
Interesting question. Yes. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And so if our cells need oxygen to nourish them,
Yeah.
an activation of our consciousness is perfusing the cells with our lovely oxygen. And that's like, it just feels amplifying already.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole body. And I mean, I might be going a little too outside of the box, but I really believe that there's consciousness.
Never.
Yeah.
I do too.
In everything.
Yeah.
So then there's that practicing receiving. And so many of us are healers and givers. And so just taking that few moments to engage the practicing and receiving, and the entire session is really just a big receiving fest where it's like, okay, good energy, good wisdom. Like there's all of this receiving. And so we're already activating that. But then also, so going back to the trust, and if you're always like bracing yourself for some sort of negative impact.
Good word, brace.
Yeah, the other part is the exhaling, right? So you've got this back and forth where you've got two teammates, the in-breath of receiving, and then also the out-breath of really enjoying the feeling of letting go, releasing, relaxing.
Going deeper.
Yep, more and more with each out.
Expanding into more.
Yeah. So and it's so simple, but when you connect the energy of the receiving and the letting go, and then it expands and it expands, and then it's so mellow at that point where it's like, okay, and now connecting from your heart to your team. And so then there is that, okay, well, I'm trusting that this is a positive experience. This is feeling really good. I'm already receiving. I'm already letting go. Now asking from your heart to connect with your spirit friends, your guides, your soul self, the universe, letting them know that you are open and you are ready for the loving energy, the healing wisdom, like all of that good stuff, right? That you're ready to receive what they would like to share today. And
that's just like, that's open. That's surrender.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
Surrender isn't a bad thing. It's just opening. It's opening the door to your expanded self.
Yeah. And your team loves you. I mean, the whole universe, but your team loves you so much. And I just imagine them all up there like high-fiving each other where it's like, yeah, we get to help.
They're like goofy loving you. They're like, they don't care if they look silly because they're effervescing with love. Just like, yay!
Right. And then sometimes the people who are laying on the couch or wherever they're laying or sitting up, it's one of the first times that they've ever really felt that deep love, that deep support, that they are so supported. And it's life-changing. Even just that, like that can be life-changing. And I love this exercise because you can do it by yourself, no problem. Where it's like, oh, I'm chilling and breathing. And then connecting with receiving and letting go, and then connecting even deeper into what the spirit friends want to share with me. And then you just receive, just experience.
It's game changing. It's really game changing. And I think that's what we're heading into also, is the realization that being your optimal best self, being totally plugged in and connected to all that there is to know, and your essential self can be easy. Like, wait a second, this doesn't have to be hard. I don't have to delve.
Easy. This is so funny that you just used the word delve and easy. So I have this book that I've written, and I've called it Delving Deeper. And because I imagine it to
I love that
series where it's delving deeper, whatever the topic is. And where I start in the book is I mention that this is so easy. Like, it's so easy. But we have this idea because of movies and TV or the books that were written previously, which definitely captured that. It's like a time capsule.
Right. Oh, thank you for saying that. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
those books were amazing, and they're such a good launching point for getting curious about all of this. But the way that things are happening now, it definitely has more ease and flow.
Totally. Well, we can look at it in terms of technology. The technology that we're accessing, our consciousness, it's a technology. It's a human technology. And so if we're just starting to access it at the turn of the century, you're going to have a different experience as a collective to what is happening now. And so I think, look at where we're at with technology now. And I have like old technology, gosh, 2-3 years.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and consciousness is the moment things are transmuted and actualized on the human collective, so too follows the whole.
Right. Absolutely. And it's funny with you holding up the phone, and you know how they're always releasing iOS updates. And so have we talked about the high pitched tones yet? I feel like we have.
Probably we have, but let's do it some more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So during that lower, more mellow energy from the last couple of months, and then the last couple of days, where, like I said, I just yesterday, after thinking about this and having it in the back of my mind about updating the website and other things that I really want to do before the PhD program like really kicks into high gear, where I'm like, oh my God, like timeline, and so, or time frame deadline, and I had not been getting many of the high-pitched tones, which from multiple sources, they say it's a download. We're receiving something. What are we receiving? We don't always know, but it's good, whatever it is. And I lament those quiet periods that go on for weeks sometimes, where I'm just like,
where are my tones?
Yeah, or I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I miss it.
there's a void.
Right. Yeah. Where I like that communication, that interaction in whatever form that it takes. And so the last couple of days, like multiple per day, this morning, 3. And I was just like, man, it's going to be a good conversation with Nora. And the third one that came in while I heard little chimes from my phone where you were messaging me. And I was like, it's like a little orchestra and all these different voices. And what's funny is the first one, I'd already received one this morning, a couple last night. And I was talking to my husband. We have tea in the morning sometimes and have these interesting chats. I know, how adorable, right? And so he asked me,
as it should be.
Yeah, he's a cutie and helping the world quietly. And so he asked me, he was like, well, what do you think that you're learning from those tones? And I just said to him, I was like, I'm not really sure. And then one of the strongest ones started to come in. And I think that they were like, well, if there's any confusion.
Yeah, let's just let you know now.
Yeah, and there was so much emotion connected to that one where that doesn't normally happen, but I just told him, I was like, oh, something's happening right now. So he knows to just like chill and sit quietly while it's happening. And so then I started to say like, yeah, I'm not really sure. And I felt teary.
Wow.
Like teary-eyed. And I was just like, okay, I definitely need to ask about this, because the clients who are also, and most clients are receiving these high-pitched tones. When we ask about it, the universe, their higher selves, they're like, just meditate right after. Just get quiet and ask, what was it that came in? And what's funny is I said to them when I was conversing with their higher selves during a session, I said to them, I was like, well, what if you're in a public place and there's a lot going on? And they didn't allow for any wiggle room. They were like, you can leave.
Do it then. Yeah, do it then. So
take a bathroom break if you need to.
So if I were to ask you to just tune in right now and close your eyes and just connect with your heart energy, expanding out, and just connecting with the wisdom that's coming through around these tones, just share with us what you're getting.
Okay, so the first thing that came in was just a deep feeling of love and gratitude for you. And
Aw.
then what's funny is I actually did this exercise right before. So I think that's why that's not the answer that they're giving me, because they already answered it. Because
Uh-huh.
I thought like, well, I got to follow their directions. Life is always better when I do. And so I asked them, I was like, what was that? And then it's interesting when you receive an answer that, like the word surrender,
Mhm.
we don't inherently sometimes think of that as positive until we give it a little more time, and we actually get into what it really means. And so I asked them, and they said defense mechanism. Now,
That is so, oh, I'm so glad you're bringing this up. I'm so
yeah,
glad.
yeah. And so I thought defense mechanism, like my knee-jerk reaction is, oh, well, that's what someone would do if they're feeling insecure. And so I went normal human thoughts
Uh-huh.
initially. And then I thought like, come on, Courtney, you know better. I said, okay, what do you mean by defense mechanism? Always got to follow up. What do you mean by that? And so they said, well, you've been asking to be protected. And I'm so protected, but I've been
Mm.
asking to be protected from what's been happening with the retrograde energy. And that came in during a session too. They were like,
Oh.
you can go with the flow of that energy, or you can ask for protection. You don't need to
Mm.
experience it. And so
Like a
there was,
filter, like a level
yeah,
of filtering.
yeah.
Mm.
I think that I really feel, thank goodness, I feel so relieved by this. I think my mellow energy period has settled down and the hummingbird is back.
Yay! Well,
Which is really
I wanted to ask too, like for me, that mellow energy also felt like lethargy. It felt heavy. It felt like my limbs were heavy. It felt
yeah.
like I didn't honestly, like there were a couple days there where I was doing work from bed. Like I was sitting in my bed and
Rob's not
chilling.
doing work, by the way.
I love my job. But
But yeah,
right, it felt really heavy.
and
Yeah.
it's confusing when you're used to feeling light. And yeah, and especially for it to go on for so long. And so I think because all of this is happening, and I've been asking again because of the client's wisdom, thanks guys, uh, that I knew to just say like I'm ready to receive protection, like I'm ready to transition out of this. I know that
To have
time
a
is still,
break.
but there's still a calendar and there's still a PhD program starting and there's still the to-do list. Like I'm trying to practice receiving. Are we done yet?
Well, this
And
is a
so
really good point.
I think, yeah,
This
that they're
is
transitioning me.
that's a beautiful demonstration of you directing how the energy comes in, as opposed to um, being run roughshod over by the energies.
Yes.
We get to decide, don't we?
Yes. Like we absolutely have free will, which I think is funny too, because I think that they know when we're going to exercise it. So it's like
Sure, yeah.
that whole destiny and free will. I think that they just work together so beautifully. But yeah, if we can move into the energy of receiving and it feels good, go with it.
Yeah.
But if we need to, so what I did was I thought, okay, I gotta go with this receiving energy and have it feel good, but then also continue to send out my requests where I'm like, when it's time, I'd really love to move back into the higher energy. And I'm sure that my
Absolutely.
request helped them to move things forward. So this is something I want to ask you about with the eclipse
Mm-hmm.
happening today, which I didn't even know was happening
Is
until
it
I
a lunar or solar?
it's lunar, and apparently it's happening in the Eastern Hemisphere. So for us, we're not actually going to see it, but it's going to be 90 minutes long. It's going to
Wow.
be with a full moon, and the full moon is one of those impressive like harvest moons or whatever.
Right, like
Right
blue blood moon or something.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's an event that hasn't happened in 90 years. Now, I didn't know about any of this until, and I feel like, because I don't watch the news anymore, so something cool is happening. I
In
think
the
the
news.
like, yeah, yeah. So the universe is like, Courtney is never going to find this out, so we got to send the client on this day to tell her. And it makes so much sense because the eclipse, the total the total solar eclipse that happened last August 2017.
Lionsgate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 9 days later, I went into full receiving mode. Like I don't know what they were doing, but it was amazing. And eventually I
That
asked
was
more
a
about it.
huge. That was huge.
I think they were internally, now that I've asked about it and I've had more perspective and experience from it, I feel really confident that they were transitioning me internally to the new earth. Yep, getting goosebumps right now. Because there are people who are meant to be bridges, right, that help with the transition. And I understand so much more about it now. I didn't know what any of this really meant when it was happening.
Oh my
but it makes
gosh.
perfect sense now. Yeah. And so for 3 days, they just had me laid out on the couch where I was oscillating between having this crazy internal heat and then oscillating to being freezing and shaking and so cold. And it was just going back and forth. And I was sweating through my shirt like multiple times a night,
Wow.
3 nights in a row. I was like, what is happening? But I kept saying to them, I trust you. Like that was the mantra for that whole experience. I trust you.
Which is
Yes.
allowing. There's that surrender. There's that trust surrender piece.
Yes. And so I've not really felt anything like that until yesterday. I didn't
Ah.
know an eclipse was happening until she mentioned it. And I felt the energy start to shift yesterday morning. She had her session in the afternoon. So it's not a placebo effect where I was already feeling, I was like, oh dear. And I just asked, I was like, I got clients like, because when they did it last year, they gave me a pocket of a few days where I didn't have clients. So they were like, okay, get her.
Rest.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And so I was like, guys, I have clients this time. Like I need a lighter version of what that was. And so that's what they've done where they had it happening throughout yesterday. She explained, total lunar eclipse. I'm like, oh, okay, got it. And then last night, I didn't sweat all the way through my shirt, and I only had it happen once instead of like throughout the whole night. But yeah, and I've not felt anything like that since the last eclipse. So for me, it's like, oh, okay, all right, we're kicking into
Wow.
another gear. And so I feel like the couple of days and that defense mechanism in a really nice, healthy way where they're like, you're going through the shift, but you're going through it in a way that is manageable and
Yeah.
you will function. And I did not know, I honestly didn't know how this conversation with you was going to go because they didn't let me go into my normal mode until like maybe an hour before this conversation. I was like, I don't care if I'm all like raw.
Woohoo.
Yeah, like I'll just have the interview. Like even if I'm
Go
like,
girl. Yeah.
yeah, just like,
I
yeah,
love it.
all right. But I'm back. They were like, okay, we'll take it into the hour before and you're back.
So this is really, I think, super informative, and thank you so much for sharing that because it demonstrates how many different phases we're all going through and like spacey and like tapped in or needing to rest. I mean, I think a lot of people who have not a clue about how the energies are working are thinking that they have a flu or that they have some sort of illness. And I mean, because that, how else could you even manage that? Or like, and a doctor is not going to tell you, well, just go home and rest because the energies are really intense right now. So you heard it from us, everybody. Just chill, have, some water, a lot of water, rest, get in water, get in water. And I want to also transition. I mean, this is so, I think, super important and super fruitful because of the currentness. I mean, talk about current news. I just wanted to say this one thing. Like, I think one of the reasons people are saying goodbye to the news is as they tap into the new earth energies. And I totally agree with you about what that solar eclipse represented last year. Same thing for me. But the news is what's going on with you, current events, what's happening, how are you going to manage getting through your day with joy and ease, like our relationships going cattywampus. We all know in these energies there's so much focus on introspection, recalibrating. That's the word, recalibration, people. Like, let it happen. It's going to happen whether you allow it or not. But
right. I would say it's going to be a much easier road if there's less resistance.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And let that be the mantra.
Mm-hmm.
I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. And it's going to be an easier road where I can't even imagine what would the experience have been like. Would it have taken 7 days instead of, if I
Right.
had said like, let's just do this, like whatever this is, let's just do it.
Let's just do it. And let's try to have as much fun with it as possible. Like so when we're in a state of resistance, it's not fun to be down, especially when you're used to being the hummingbird.
Yep.
And then you're like, wait a second. But you know, what a concept. Enjoy the downtime. Have a moment of staycation. Just, if you can't beat them, join them. Like, you know, make yourself breakfast in bed, you know, like hook yourself up so you can just really enjoy, nourish yourself. What a concept, right?
Yeah. And trust them. And this was a big experience for me. Trust them that whatever the to-do list is, that they will allow, once the receiving mode has wrapped, will, or that version, we're always receiving, but that version of the receiving mode, trust that whatever you thought would take 2 weeks to complete, that they will absolutely help you get it done in 2 days.
Awesome. I love it.
Fun. Fun is such a big word.
Yeah.
I love fun. And it's like, just weave that into everything.
Yeah. What a concept.
Flow and fun.
and that's, I think that's a shift into the new earth too. We're seeing a lot of unfun stuff playing out on the sort of global stage, but that's also that resistance. I think there's that sort of, that gripping, that bracing, that hanging on, that clenching.
Of the old energy.
Yeah. And trying to tamp down, and it's like, just soften, you know, soften and allow. But I want to shift gears a little bit, because I want people to know how amazing you are, and how unusual it is for somebody like you, who to be a hypnotherapist, not one, not two, but 3 different spiritual, hypnotherapeutic art, healing arts. And you're also getting a PhD, which is like,
Yeah.
even you feel that way, but
an education junkie.
could be.
Right?
You like
keep learning, gotta keep learning.
I hear you, sister. So you do QHHT, you do LBL and past life regression, certified through the Newton Institute, and then you also do Dr. Brian Weiss's past life regression. And I'm sure over time you develop your own artistry, but if you could just describe a little bit what people would encounter with the different modalities. So first, let's talk about QHHT. I call you and I want a session, a Dolores Cannon sanctioned QHHT session. What would happen there?
So 2 comments before I start. The first is, this is what a classic traditional session would be like. Now, I've noticed, again, this last year has been amazing. I used to joke that 80% of the sessions stay within the formula and 20% go rogue and do what they're meant to do. Or, well, they all do what they're meant to do, but do what they are meant to do in a way that we weren't necessarily expecting.
Non-traditional. Right?
Yeah. And what that usually means almost every time is that they go much deeper, much faster than we were expecting. So, we have these formulas to work them eventually into the spirit realm. But the universe was like, straight to the spirit realm. I'm just like, oh, okay. And then if a past life is really important to them because they either feel like there's a deep root cause from a past life, or they're just curious about them and they want to see what it's like, then we'll work from the spirit realm and say, hey, soul, what's a past life that's related to this? And then we go back into a past life and then we pop back up into the spirit realm. So there's a way to manage it so that everything that they want to experience, we can work toward that. But the formula, so like I was saying, last year I would joke 80% within the formula, 20% going rogue. Then a few months ago, I was like, the numbers have shifted so that 80% going rogue, 20% staying in the formula. I'm going to modify that again. So I would say at least 90% are going rogue.
I hear you, sister. And I think that's statistically significant, even if you're not collecting data. That is a huge shift in a very short period of time.
Yeah. So that's part of the website update. That the way that my website looks now, it was created either last August or September, right around. So it's been less than a year. And already Oh, right. You know how we were talking earlier about time capsules?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay, well, these books are a beautiful experience of going into what it was like 10 years ago, 30 years, whatever it is. My website is like, hey, you want to experience the middle of 2017? So now
Wow.
I really need to do these updates. And one of the main things that I'll be highlighting is, and I will answer the three differences, but one of the main things that I'll be highlighting is that really it's just, if you have your wish list and you're like, I read the LBL books
Mm-hmm.
and I really want to see the next live viewing station, or I really want to see. So yeah, absolutely give me that wish list. But the way that we're going to get there probably is going to be a lot quicker and easier and deeper than you were anticipating.
Right.
Which is really good news.
Yeah.
And for me, when someone books a session and it's either a 3-hour session or a 4-hour session, it's really just like, well, do you want 3 hours of playtime or 4 hours of playtime? Because we're going to get real in there, but we just don't, it's like you pick what the time frame is rather than the style. So all that being said, the traditional version of the styles, is it okay if I start with past life regression? Because I think that builds into QHHT.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So if you really are just madly in love with Brian Weiss, and I am, so I get it, that's going to focus more on a past life regression and the healing that you're receive from connecting your past life issues that connect with your current life issues, how all of that works together, what's the purpose of that pattern, what are you meant to learn, let's release it, right? Because normally people are not talking about a really happy pattern. They want to talk about a pattern that they're meant to release, although there are many happy patterns.
Yeah.
And then we can also focus on, I love this technique too, where a lot of times, like I'm such a positive person that I think sometimes it might be saccharine, but I don't care. I love it. It feels good.
You go with your bad self, girl.
Yes. And so you go with your sparkly self.
You go with your sparkly self, your good self, your sweet, sweet self.
Right. Yeah. And so one technique that I love is, okay, sure, let's focus on that pattern that's not so awesome. But once we've learned from it, we understand the purpose, we're ready to release it, let's also go into a lifetime where the opposite experience was happening. So let's say that they're feeling a lack of love and they're wondering about that. Okay, well, guess what? You've also had lifetimes where you felt so much love, like everything. It was just a really beautiful lifetime, all that you could ever wish for and want. And let's reconnect with that energy, because that's absolutely part of who you are too. And again, opening up to receiving. So a lot of purpose with that style. Now, the QHHT, why I feel that builds so beautifully is that the formula is that one would go into a past life, then experience what they're meant to experience from that, learn what they're meant to learn from that, go to the final day of that life. So when we pass, we transition up into the spirit realm. We've done it so many times, we're used to it, right? So I love how I'm like, dying, no big deal.
Go through the death scene. Done.
Like, oh, old hat, you know how. And so they transition, they go into the spirit realm. Now, this is where, with this technique, that they are meant to have the soul self borrow their vocal cords. So in the spirit realm, we've learned what we're meant to learn. The soul self borrows the vocal cords, and then we're connecting directly where the human version is observing and experiencing what the soul self is saying. And it's interesting because what the human would have answered and what the soul answers, they're not always the same thing. And it's like, what?
Soul says what?
Right. And it's so cute too. And then I'll pause for just a second to say this again with the time capsule, that because of the books, which I love the books, so I never want to act like, whatever. Like, the books are amazing. It's the gateway for so many people, but the shift is, a lot of people think that they're consciously not going to be aware during the sessions. They are almost always aware. And I thought I was doing something wrong at first, where there were these amazing sessions, both as the client and as the hypnotherapist, these amazing sessions. You're clearly very deep. You're very connected. The soul wisdom is coming in. You're consciously aware the entire time.
You're like you're this person, you're this person, you're this person, you're over the, yeah. And you're handling it all.
Yes.
No overwhelm.
Right. And it's actually, yeah. And I love it too, because at first, again, because of the books, I thought like, I'm obviously doing something wrong because this is not what's supposed to happen. I wish we could just throw out the what's supposed to happen.
Well, they're pioneers. They're predecessors. They're the time capsule. Exactly.
Right.
And I'm go backwards. We can't.
Nor would we want to.
No.
Yeah. And like I said, everything that we love about that time capsule can be woven into this new highly connected. We're not nothing has to fall away. And when people say, oh, well, consciously I'm not going to remember, I'm like, you probably are. And
but I could just say something.
Right. What's so beautiful about that? And I remind them, because every now and then they're like, what if I interfere? And I'm like, well, you might. But I remind them that they are part of the team. When they walk out of that session, right? When they leave my office and it's just them in the car, or the next day it's just them at work, that conscious part of themselves is what's driving the bus. So for the conscious part of themselves to be fully aware of the session rather than having to listen to a recording later and going, oh, what happened? They are part of the team. They're a huge part of the team. So for them to be aware, all it's doing is it's integrating who they really are and who they are. And that's really important. Like,
that's so cool.
Know your magic, know your power, and so consciously they're getting to feel that live where I'm like, or where they're like, but yeah, me too as a client. Oh my goodness. Like so connected, so powerful. So like, why did I ever worry about that thing? And you take that back with you, where if you start to worry about that thing again, you're like, nah, I already know my infinite wisdom and power and strength. Like, don't need to worry about that because I was consciously present. So when I consciously have that worry,
it just drops right in. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm able to go like, they already gave me that wisdom. And
that's so cool. That is so cool. I've in my work, I've been trying to implement things that will like flash into their consciousness, like to remind them, like almost like the opposite. Yeah. An anchor for sure, but something that actually flashes in their like vision, like, you know, that maybe their empowerment symbol, maybe whatever it is that's most important.
Thank you for this. I'm going to use this.
Yeah.
Because I always think about an anchor, right? So, oh, my soul's the color blue. Well, anytime you see or think about blue, then you're going to reconnect with this feeling. Or if they're feeling all of this love in their heart, like anytime you place your hand on your heart, you'll reconnect with it. I never thought about doing it a little bit different and just weaving in something that is perfect for them, but not necessarily exactly what was happening at the time.
Right. Like a sparkle, or, you know, like I see sparkles. I want to see more sparkles.
What they are. Cause I wonder if your sparkles are the same thing as my sparkles.
I actually haven't asked. I can check in.
Okay.
So I'm being told it's my home base. It's like, this is your calibrating point. So when it's like a synchronicity. So when I see numbers, you know, the lining up numbers or whatever, I'll see occasionally a sparkle, or with my clients, I'll see, it's a very sparkly experience with the clients. It's just like, you're on the right track. Just stay honed in there. That's home base. Keep going.
I love it. Well, it's funny too, because I'm wondering, because my answer is different, but also overlaps with yours, where for me, it's the fairies saying hi.
Oh.
But my home base probably has a lot to do with the elementals.
Yeah.
So fairies, the gnomes, like the ones that are really connected to nature. And so I don't know. And what's funny is right before the session, the end of it is a session in a way. And
it's a session.
Like, we're connecting.
Yeah. We're helping each other out.
Yeah. Right before, I was guided to pick up 2 books to, I guess, do a little show and tell. This one, Earth Angels.
Yeah. Maureen.
Doreen
Virtue. You're covering her.
Yeah. So
Name.
this is such a good book to find out. And I had a hypnotherapist who's amazing. She was like, you should really read this book. It's a tiny little thing, right? Like tiny little thing. And it
I
talks
love
about
Doreen Virtue.
types of angels. And then as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, I'm really connecting with, I think it was at least 3 different types, even though there were maybe 5 or 6. I was like, I'm definitely connecting pretty strongly, especially with the elementals, but also with the star children, star seeds, star people, and then just the regular angels. And so then at the end of the book, she says, so if you feel like you're connecting with more than one, you probably have a soul that dabbles. Education junkie, right? Like, why would I try one when I could try more than one?
Well, ultimately, if we're infinite, aren't we all ultimately dabblers?
Thank you. Yes. The expanding. We really are all connected. So everything, like I've been you, you've been me, and it's all happening right now. Oh, I just got this really nice feeling where I'm like, I love being you. Like, what a weird sentence to say, but it felt really good. So
you're welcome anytime, honey. And we get to dance in each other's scene.
Right. And it's a beautiful dance.
And there's no competition. I think that's another thing that I wanted to sort of blast in here too, is that is why these things become easier and more fun. Because if we're not competing and we're not racing to win,
right,
we get to actually enjoy.
Yes. We're all winners.
We're all winners.
Yes. And I've been really lucky, and I'm sure the same is for you, because you don't have that competitive energy, so you wouldn't be drawing that in. Same where I've been really lucky where I'm able to refer clients to other practitioners refer to me, and everybody, just kind of like everybody has a different restaurant that's a good fit for them.
Yes.
Like not every single person is going to go to the raw vegan restaurant. Right. Not everybody's going to go to the barbecue restaurant. There are different things that work for different people.
There's a network, and different people want different things at different times.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Yeah, so just because I'm in this period where I can work within the formula of the sessions, but it's also gone in such a beautiful direction on its own that for people who are really drawn to the formula, they're going to find a different practitioner. Yeah. For those that, even if they consciously are drawn to the formula, but their soul is like, yeah, we can do the wish list, but you're ready to just like drop right in. You don't need all of that build up. Then they're going to end up on my doorstep, and we're just going to like drop right in together. So it's perfect. Oh, well, that brings me back to, do you want me to talk about LBL?
Yes.
So
of course, we got to finish that out. Yeah. So we got 2 covered too.
Yes.
Well, wait, can I ask you a question that I've always heard, and I don't know if it's true, about Dolores Cannon's method, is that you're supposed to be monotone?
Okay, so that's very interesting. I've heard that word used as well. I would say that it's a bit different than that. It's more like riding the energy wave. So,
okay, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I think that when people are working toward mellow, right, and there's that deepening within, but sometimes that's viewed as monotone, but it doesn't need to be. So if you pay attention to when I was talking about the in breath and the out breath, just accidentally, I wasn't even doing it on purpose, you could see that part of my energy started to shift.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
More mellow, even though I was like, Courtney, you're going, come back up. But you feel that like
you're putting yourself into trance.
Absolutely. And you know that whenever they've strapped up the hypnotherapist and the client to the EEG machines, that it's actually the hypnotherapist that goes into the relaxed energy first. And it's important for us to stay really mindful of that. But yes.
I'm pretty loopy often after session.
I know, like we're totally in there. Like there's one, like we're definitely in the sidecar of their zone. So, but with her method, again, I can understand why somebody might use the word monotone, but it's really just like
I get it. I mean, it's what we do. It's that's why I wanted to ask you, because that, I think it's just a discrepancy I wanted to clear up, because it's, I think too, when you're a hypnotherapist that's been working for a while, you start to channel the rhythm of the session. And so you're riding that wave, that frequency that you're actually bringing your client to. So, I mean, maybe that's what's happening too. The client is in training to the frequency that you're offering.
Yes.
And maybe that's that quick drop in.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, so if you were thinking the sentence, it's time to relax. So if I say it at my normal tone, I would be like, it's time to relax.
Right. Yeah.
That's not very relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, okay, I'll try.
How do I do that?
Yeah. And then with the monotone, it would be more like, it's time to relax. That's boring. That's not relaxing.
That's going to put you to sleep, not into trance.
Right. Or just bore you to tears.
Yeah.
But then if you actually get into the energy of relaxation, it's like, I got to do the breath. Okay. So I would laugh, but it's time to relax, right? Like there's this, but of course, like you progressively get a little, it's funny, it's happening now where you get a little relaxed, and it's not monotone. It's funny because I think of it as being kind of sing-songy.
It's very sing-songy.
There's this like
shift. It's emotive. It's emotive of caring and compassion. I think, people who have children, especially small children, could probably relate to this, or animals too, like where you're talking just with such love and kindness and gentleness. And people resonate, I think, with hypnotherapist's voice. And we become we can't help it. Once you become a hypnotherapist and you learn how to do that, it changes the way that you communicate. And so people, like, I really like the sound of your voice, but some people may not. And that's another reason you probably want someone whose voice you resonate with, because if this is annoying to you, you're probably not going to have the best experience.
Good point. Yeah. And the universe will always pair a client and a hypnotherapist with the person they're meant to be with. I mean, our souls have been planning that meeting for a while. And so someone might have the world's most beautiful voice, but if that's not your hypnotherapist that you're meant to work with, you're going to register it as something that's unappealing, because they're moving you
non-resonant. Totally. Yeah. Sorry, I usurped that conversation and I wanted you to share your LBL stuff.
No, like I said, as I was preparing for this, basically my preparation was like, this is going to be awesome.
Let's do this.
Look forward to a fun conversation. Yeah, so this is perfect. And it's been a lot of fun. Thank you. But yeah, so the LBL, so with the building nature, they all complement each other so perfectly, where you've got the past life regression that then builds into the QHHT. Now, the LBL, of course, incorporates all those elements, where the same thing, where you've got that past life regression that's meant to be the transition into the spirit realm. So really aligning with QHHT at this stage. QHHT is a little bit different, where there is this conversation with the soul self, and anything that you want to explore, you can. LBL, I feel, is a little bit different, because in the books, Dr. Newton fleshes out so beautifully the different areas of the spirit realm that came in with his clients. And
like the geography of the spirit
like a map.
realm. Yeah, like a map.
Exactly. Where, I mean, I know that there's a lot more that's
infinite,
going on.
Right.
Right. But there's still these different stations that people become aware of and curious about. You could do the same thing with the Dolores Cannon reading, where if you're mindful of patterns, you're going to start to notice, oh, okay, well, there's this world that, from this book to that book sounds pretty similar. But Newton, I think, really just says like, and here's this station, and here's that station, and here. So
this is where your soul group is. This is where your council resides. This is
right.
Yeah.
And so Weiss, same thing, where he's got messages from the masters. It's just that Newton, he really just lays it out, where he's like, you don't have to piece this together. Like, here's the way that it's been pieced together in my experience. So for that session, because there's a lot more topics that people might be interested in, because he's fleshed out these different, like you said, geographical points within the universe, then those sessions tend to take longer and explore even more, like the type of, or the question that might come up if you've read his books: what type of soul am I? Because I use the word explore. So there are explorer souls, there are healers, there are all these different types. Whereas in the Cannon books, and I haven't read all of Cannon's books, I should say that, because there might be a book that I haven't read and people watching are like, what are you talking about? Let us know, because I haven't read it.
Right. Me either.
Yeah. So you might piece together like, oh, there are these souls that are helping and you might start to call it a helper soul. And Newton will start to just say, here are the labels that I've noticed.
He'll identify, he'll sort of, he has more of a categorizing, which makes sense. I mean, 7,000 sessions, you know, and it's almost like a more, what is it, taxonomy or morphology of the spirit realm. I mean, people and people are going to want to, like, oh, I can actually see where I select my body before I come into this life. I mean, that's pretty intriguing. Or I know I have all of these people in my life. Like, do I need to see if they're a part of my soul group.
Right.
But exactly. Those, they're also non-traditional in how they're showing up, right? For you too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, definitely. Like, everything is shifting so much. I can't remember if we already talked about this, but we'll talk about it again if we did. So the main three things that I've noticed, and again, I love that my clients don't know each other. So whenever a pattern emerges, I know that, especially if it's counter to something that they've already read. So it takes a lot because everything that he's saying is really trustworthy, right? But things are shifting and things are changing. So it takes a lot to say something that's counter to what has been, what we trust. Right. And so the main three patterns that I've noticed from the clients, as well as from my own experiences, the first is the animal souls. Animal souls definitely can be in our soul group. We definitely can incarnate as animals. It doesn't need to be as cut and dry. And one of the most moving experiences for me is when I was working with my husband, because we needed to do case studies, right? And so he lets me practice on him, even though he's a little bit resistant. But now he asks for sessions where he's like, I'm feeling a little bit stressed out. Can I?
I wish my husband did that. He's like, he just passes out with me. Your voice is so relaxing.
That's really sweet. Well, I'm sure there's deep healing happening for him on that subconscious level, whether it's physical or energetic. But yeah, with Charles, he's such a trooper, a really good sport. So we were doing the LBL, and you know what it's like, where if you got this guy who really tends to enjoy the normal, right? I love the weird. I'm like, bring me more weird. And he's like,
bring it.
The normal? Yeah. And he married me. It was like, well, if you were looking for normal, that was a bad choice. So because
funny
he doesn't
that.
have, what's that?
Funny that, how that works out.
I know, right? Yeah, yin yang. Perfect. Yeah, perfect puzzle pieces to come together. But what was so profound for me is because he's not interested in any of this work in the way that we are. He hasn't read any of Newton's books. He's so disinterested that I haven't even talked to him about the interesting things that I've discovered, where I'm like, yeah, Charles is not the audience member for this conversation. And he did not know anything about those different areas of the spirit realm.
Oh, cool. That's the best.
Right. Yeah. And so when we were doing the LBL, he went into four
stations. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there just kind of like, how? And because somebody might say, oh, were you leading him? I really don't think so, because as it was happening, I felt pretty shocked and had to play it cool. You know what I mean? I couldn't be like,
this is in training, right? How amazing for you. That's so amazing.
Yeah. I know. I couldn't be like, holy crap, how'd you know about the library?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you didn't know about the library.
Right. So he's having these really validating experiences. And then we get to the next live viewing station, which again, the way that he was describing it, I was just like, how is he describing this so similar? And so it's very validating for me, where I go from believing all of this in my head to really believing it in my heart. Because a lot of times people are really interested in this work because they've read the books. So if they go into something that they've read about, even though I very much believe their experience, there's this little piece that's like,
I hear you.
Because they read it.
Right.
For him, it just wasn't possible.
Yeah, it just totally blew that away.
Yeah. So when he went into the next live viewing station, and I was like, well, what options did you have for this incarnation?
I love that question, because it's so cool when they get to see.
Right. And so we're trained to expect different human options. Oh no, not this guy. So he wanted a calm and relaxing lifetime. And so he had the three options. One was a tree.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. One was him, Charles. The other one was a raccoon.
Wow.
Right. Right. So it's very interesting because both of those options, the tree and the raccoon, don't line up with that. If you are a soul that incarnates as a human, that's the path track that you stay in. He had those two options or two other options. And so I asked, I was like, well, why did you decide to be Charles? You're going for a relaxing, calm lifetime. And he said, well, the tree lifetime would have been a little too long. Mm-hmm. The raccoon lifetime would have been a little too short. So I wanted to go down the middle and have this experience as Charles. And I asked him, one of my favorite questions is, what's your soul's favorite thing to do in the spirit realm? And, a lot of times they're like, I like to fly, or I like to take this class, or I like to see this planet and just pop in and see how it's doing. For him, he was like, I like to just go off by myself and buzz. How cute is that? And also it's funny because sometimes people are like, oh, I don't know about spouses working together. That statement, that one little sentence, I like to go off by myself and buzz, helped me to understand who he is.
I can feel your emotion behind that. That's powerful.
Yeah. Where I was just like, because I'm very go. And if we call it horizontal time. If he needs horizontal time where he's just like laying down and relaxing, because I understand his soul now, I'm not like, oh, you seem so tired or lazy. Like I would never call out those negative words anymore. I'm like, oh, you're relaxing. Like you're doing what you like to do. Keep doing what you like to do. Let me know when you're ready. Yeah. So that's been really, really helpful for me to understand that. But yeah, so when it comes to, I know it is very sweet. When it comes to the different types of incarnations, it always trips me out a little bit when we understand that the universe is limitless and then we try to place limits where we're like, oh, but that's against the rules. There are no rules. There are no rules.
Yes, indeed, my sister. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You can't contain this.
Yeah. It's like if I want to be a rock for 10 minutes or 1,000 years, I can tap into the rock's energy. Talk about like just chilling and buzzing. You can just go into a rock and chill if you want to. And plus,
that's a really good point.
Yeah. And everything is happening all at once. So it's funny when I was first a client and I learned about concurrent lifetimes, I'm like, is there another part of me? An orangutan, right?
Yes.
So the first one I got exposed to was an animal. And so right out of the gate, this is in like the first handful of sessions, right out of the gate where I didn't even know there could be concurrent lifetimes. Then to find out that it's an animal lifetime, the universe was like, go girl, you can handle this. And so
let me pause you there. Well, and I'm sorry to interrupt. But if all things are happening simultaneously and we're all one, isn't everything a concurrent lifetime?
Yes.
So I am you, you are me, we're getting to play. And that's why it's so fun.
I'm the computer. You're the, like, whatever this little thing is called, shelf.
Floating shelf.
Yes. Yeah, which is like connected to my head. So that's
part of your antenna device. You're also like one of those giant beetles with the cool antlers.
That would be a fun lifetime. Like, I don't want to look like a boring human anymore. I want to do
I need a headdress.
Right. Yeah. So the whole thing, we are everything. And really I think that's why the sessions are going in this majorly expansive session, because we are meant to love each other. And when we really, again, going from here, like, oh, okay, we're all one, we're from the same source, but let me honk at you because you cut me off in traffic. Like there's a disconnect between like really like believing it, but then really living it.
Yeah.
Can I say something that's very exciting?
Yes, always. Okay. You must.
Yeah. So as far as that expansion that's happening right now, okay, so one of the things I do, it's a Facebook group and it's called Spiritual Hypnosis Live. And so I will do a live session and they're so much fun. And so my guest from June is my friend Kevin. Kevin is the one who introduced me to LBL. I didn't even know him. This was our very first meeting at a book club. And he just gently said, have you heard about Dr. Newton and LBL? And I'm like, no, I haven't. Because I had only trained with Dr. Weiss at this point. I'm pretty fresh into all of this. And he was like, if you ever get trained in the LBL style, I'll definitely have a session with you. I've never met him before. I immediately registered, I'm going to get trained in that style. And then 2 years later, because, they have the time requirements where you got to be a practitioner for at least 2 years. Like I had been a practitioner for 2 years and 1 month by the time the training happened. Talk about getting it under the wire. And so he eventually had his session, and I was just like, this is amazing. This guy drops in so quickly and has so much, it's amazing to be in the same room with him while he's having these sessions. Charles, my little quiet partner, he said to me one day, he was like, he might be
your not little. He's very tall.
like a foot taller than me. And talk about sparkle energy. He definitely has sparkle energy. He's just off buzzing, but he's also sparkling. So he said to me, he was like, Kevin might be your Catherine. Now, for the people who've read the Dr. Weiss books, is the name he's given.
Yes, right.
Started all of this for him. And that book, Many Lives, Many Masters, really is the gateway drug for many of us. That was the first one I ever read. So for me, I'm like,
me too.
Right? So we owe a lot to Weiss and Catherine. And Charles was like, Kevin might be your Catherine. This was after the first session that I had with him. And
wow.
Yeah. And so Kevin finally made his appearance on Spiritual Hypnosis Live back in June. Anybody who's watching it, just ask to join.
Oh, I missed it.
It's recorded. So you can watch it. And Kevin and I, we've known each other for 3 years. And what's funny is we don't really spend that much time together. We always have a nice time whenever we're in the same space. But as we've gotten to know each other a little bit better, there are interesting overlaps where I always get what he gets. He always gets what I get. But one of us is always a little bit further along in a certain area, but close enough where the other one can reach where the other one is. So we just keep upping each other's game. And so we're a really good match that way. But then there are other things that overlap. We showed up to a book club a couple months ago. We both showed up looking like camp counselors. So the khaki shorts, the brightly colored shirt, his was green, mine was blue. We like to meet for tea before the full book club starts, which he's the only one that I do that with, right? Because we're upping each other's games during those conversations.
Because you're obviously in each other's soul group.
Right. And he had expressed that before where he was like, oh, you're there. We don't know each other that well at this stage, but I'm like, that feels so right.
Yeah.
And so we have our book club. When we're leaving book club, we're already dressed as camp counselors, so it's like twinsy day. He pulled into a parking spot. I pulled in right behind him. We're facing the same direction. We both have convertibles. And I got to see this because I was facing him. We didn't do this on purpose, but in unison, like synchronized swimmers, our tops go up convertible. Because there's no way we're missing an opportunity for a top-down evening drive home. So, I'm like, we dress the same. I'm watching the synchronized, the whole thing was just like, what is going on here? And so, when he was having his live session, and we had both and he finishes my sentences. I said to him about the new earth, and I was like, I think what has happened. And he goes, you're already there. I'm like, yes. So we both have been having wonderings where we're like, what is going on? During the live session, while we're connected to his soul self, and his soul self is borrowing his vocal cords, we asked Jurgen, are we connected? Are we the same soul? Because we've been wondering. And Jurgen was like, yes. And I just sat there quietly for a second. And I love people who know me. They're like, Courtney, when you're silent, we know something big is being processed. So for me, finding out that Kevin, who is just the sweetest guy, he's so much nicer than I am. He's so gentle.
Oh, please. You're ridiculously nice too.
I'm firecrackery. I'm that version of nice.
Yeah, he's not firecrackery. Yeah.
He's very gentle, very sweet. He'll ask he'll get to the heart of something in such a sweet way. I'll get to the heart of something in a very direct way. That kind of thing.
I'm with you, sister. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's another balancing energy.
Right. And because I have such fondness for him, finding out that he is another part of me is a really easy thing to believe, really easy to transition into. Yeah. And he and I, of course, because there's so many similarities, both of us came away from that big reveal feeling like this is just an expanding experience where if I believe that part of me is Kevin and I am part of him and same soul. So who else, right?
Right.
I would have stopped it to. And I know about my orangutan self and my alien self, which, by the way, all these other parts of myself are like so sweet. I'm like, I guess I can try to absorb some of that sweetness and gentleness. And so it's like, well, if I know about them, where does it stop? And the answer is it doesn't. Like,
Yes.
we all are one.
Well, and that, you know what that brings up for me, and we're going to need to stop because it's already been an hour and a half. Do you have a client?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't have a client for another couple hours. So
okay, good. Me too. But the thing that this brings up for me, and I think this is a perfect time to bring this in, is the idea of the twin flame, which is a really popular concept. And so in essence, you could say that Kevin is your twin flame, which is just another way of saying, right, another part of yourself.
Yeah, what's funny is because then I immediately went to that question during the live session, and I've decided to give it a different nickname because twin flame has such a well-known connotation.
Yeah.
Where a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times the connotation is that it's a romantic relationship and it's rocky.
Yeah.
Right? Kevin and I, it's very different where and
I disagree with that fundamental interpretation. I think people are applying it personally. I think it's a part of that greater expansion.
Right. And it could be a time capsule thing too, where that is what it meant for a time and it still applies to some, but it doesn't apply to everyone. So I've just been nicknaming it concurrent soul.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I like it.
And so he's actually going to come back in September. I have an amazing guest for August, where she's not just one soul, she's part of the collective.
Oh, cool.
Like they're so ancient and so together that they operate as one, but parts of them will break off to incarnate while the other ones continue to learn in their own different way, but they're really part of the same thing.
Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, really, really deep wisdom. Like they jokingly call me, I can't remember what it is. It's something like young one. And we know that I've got a pretty advanced soul, but they're still like, in a loving way, very like, oh, young one. So like, that's what we're dealing with here. So she's August. She's amazing. Then Kevin will be back in September. And of course, like that can of worms has been opened about the concurrent soul self. And like, why is my soul self going by on soul? His soul self is going by Jurgen. Like what's happening there? So really start to delve into, with us all being one, the experience of feeling a little bit separated out. And I think it's going to lead to what we all know. We're having our own individual experiences, but we're all really one. Maybe we should start being nicer to each other.
I love it. And maybe that's what we can end on today is that it's just leading to greater expansion.
Yep. Anybody who's watching this conversation, their soul is like, I want to tune into greater expansion. Let's watch these two cutie pies talk about it. And then the seeds get planted.
It's so exciting. So why don't you share all of your website, your ways of being contacted, share about your live show?
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So I don't know when you're posting this, but I'm making a commitment to August 1st. Perfect. Post it before because I'm going to go ahead and commit to August 1st. Charles has already agreed, so it's happening. So by midnight, Eastern Standard Time or Daylight Time, whatever version we're in right now, there is no time. So by midnight on August 1st, I will have the website updated so that you can go to this one place to find all of this, but I will have the link to Spiritual Hypnosis Live, that Facebook group. I will have a link to my online education. So I've created 9 classes that you can take
awesome.
online. Right, because people, I mean, my clients are joking with me at this point. They're like, yeah, having to wait 4 weeks to see you now. Having to wait 6 weeks to see you now. And I'm like, yeah, sorry about that. But there is this supplementary education where they can take these online classes while they're waiting or in between sessions or as a way to.
What's the platform?
Kajabi.
Okay.
So, but I'll put that link because it's like, how does one spell Kajabi?
Yeah, send me all the information and I'll put it in the description box.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it doesn't really roll right off the tongue, where it's like something like Kajabi and then my name and then the word store. What order they all happen in, I don't remember. So it's like my website is payitforwardhypnosis.com.
Easy.
So in that one place, I'll have a really, thanks to Charles, I'll have a really user-friendly version of being able to access whether it's Spiritual Hypnosis Live, my vlog, which is Metaphysical Matters, but with wordplay with the T, T-E-A, because I love tea. Then also the Kajabi online classes, where there are all these different categories where if people want to just spend like an hour and a half working on connecting with a loving past life, or connecting with abundance, or forgiving of others and ourselves. Like there are all these really deep, rich topics that they can connect with. So I'll make
that's so
sure
awesome.
easy access to all of that. And it's beautiful because with the online education, so there are people who are waiting to have sessions. This is really good practice leading up to a session, or
Oh, yeah.
we had, but then also internationally, I don't know where everybody is, but people who are watching are all over the place. People that I've worked with before are all over the place, and they can't just always fly to Hawaii or fly to DC. They can continue their experience from wherever they are. So it seems like a perfect fit to continue working together energetically, but in a way that if it's 2 p.m. on a Sunday and they're in Nova Scotia, that it's not a problem for them to.
That's awesome.
That way. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to conclude for now, and I so appreciate all of your time, and send me all of your links and I'll be sure to put that in the description box. And until the next time, Courtney, I really appreciate it. And for all of you watching, thank you for tuning in for this fabulous episode. And if you want more, please do like and subscribe and put that little notification bell on. All right, everyone. Until next time.
Yep, love you, Nora. Thank you so much.
Love you too. Bye.